Welcome everyone to the debut series of But a Beer with Wizards, presented by none other than your LLM Wizards. As a guest speaker, we have Kenneth, a man who needs no introduction. He himself has done his LLM from Harvard University, followed by an MCL program from the University of Cambridge, and currently is a PhD scholar at the same university. Kenneth will be talking about Harvard applications, and he'll tell us as to how to crack the Harvard application, and we'll be sharing some valuable insights regarding the same. Kenneth, thank you so much for agreeing to speak to us. We are delighted to have you on board. Without any further ado, we will start the question. The first and the foremost important question, that is the fundamental question about the CV. Kenneth, Harvard says that CV shouldn't really exceed 4 pages. What does that really mean? Is that the ideal size? Are we looking for a 4-page format? Are we looking for a 2-page format? And what are the kind of things that needs to be covered when we are talking about CV? How do you approach that document?
First of all, thank you for the introduction, even though I feel it was too flowery at certain points. But anyways, I'm happy to be speaking with you and with your audience, and sharing my experience applying to Harvard myself, and also reviewing, helping my friends or people I know, mentees and the rest of them, review their applications to Harvard. The CV, I always say that the CV is really a function of personal choice and style. There's no standard format for a CV.
Okay.
At the end of the day, what works for you should be what works for you. But obviously, because you know that Harvard will be receiving thousands of applications, you wouldn't want your CV to be unnecessarily lengthy, because it will be a turn-off. If someone has to run through 400, 500 applications in a day, and that person comes upon your CV and your CV is 5, 6, 7 pages, sometimes even 4 pages, that person would be, I know I would be irritated, right? So that person is bound to be irritated. So I think that there's value in keeping it short. There's value in keeping it simple. There's value in keeping it straightforward and straight to the point. And ideally, it always makes sense to put your best foot forward, right? So I know I've seen CVs where people start by talking about their career goals, right? I don't think that's ideal if you're applying for an LLM. I don't think that's ideal. If you're applying for an LLM, what they want to see is your academic pedigree and your professional pedigree. Those are the 2 things they're actually very keen on. And then to a very large extent, increasingly, at least from my own experience, I know they also want to see your extracurricular activities to know if you're a well-rounded person. So if you start your CV by making this very lengthy block statement about what your career goals are, I think it may not really be profitable or an efficient use of limited space on your CV. So I think that keep your CV short and simple. If you can, 2 pages, that's good. If it must exceed 2 pages, 3 pages, well, as much as possible, try not to exceed 4 pages, since that's the maximum they've suggested. And then start with your best foot forward. Whatever you think marks you out, that thing that you think marks you out as an individual should appear prominently on your CV. And just taking a panoramic view of all my classmates and people I know who have been to Harvard in the past 2 years since I left. Harvard is not really interested in your grades, right? Grades are important, extremely important. But I think that beyond grades, they look for evidence of people who are well-rounded human beings, right? They look for evidence of people who are culturally alive. They look for evidence of people who can become leaders, right? So if you just go on and narrate your academic history, it may work for you, it may not work for you. But if you narrate your academic history and some nice professional history, you have a better chance. If you talk about your academic history and some professional history, and also, sorry, if you talk about your academic history, some professional history, and also go on to talk about some leadership position you held, or some volunteering you did in the community, or some paper you wrote, a conference you attended. I remember speaking with a couple of my classmates and just listening to the dean of the international program, then Professor Alford, who's retired now. The things that excited him about the applications he read when he was speaking to us in our welcome week was, oh, I read an application and someone said he was a ventriloquist. So that's what excited him about the application, right? That's interesting, isn't it? And then he said some other person, so we had a US Marine in our class, and he said, the person said in his personal statement that I am writing this personal statement from the South China Sea, right? So this person was at sea at the time and was writing a personal statement. And then just listening to my friends talk about what they wrote in their personal statement and thinking about what I wrote in my personal statement, I realized that it's not merely about your academics, right? It's not merely about those things that would qualify as serious, right? Everything matters, everything counts. So as best as possible, include every piece of information that will mark you out as a distinct and unique human being, and that would mark you out as a well-rounded human being with the necessary qualities to take on society and succeed. I think that's what they're looking for, someone who would succeed in society against all odds. So put that in your CV. You know what that is for you. So put that in your CV.
Great. Thank you so much for a detailed answer. It was really helpful, and I'm sure everyone is going to take a mental note of it, and that's how they're going to approach the CV henceforth. Now, moving on to a very important question. There is a rumor mill around India which states that the letter of recommendation, if at all somebody wants to get into Harvard, should ideally come from a High Court or a Supreme Court judge, or from or from some very, very distinguished luminaries. Is that correct? Is that the approach that one should follow? Should we look into the positions and the qualifications of the referee, or should we sort of focus more about on the relationship that the referee could have held with the person, with the applicant?
Now I haven't worked with the graduate admissions program to review applications for the purpose of admission, right? So whatever I say is my opinion based on my sense of how things work and my sense of Harvard and my sense of what they think about, right? And from the things I've heard them say. And I don't think that Harvard is particularly bothered about who your recommender is, right? I think their focus is on the content of the recommendation, right? It would be very nice if you have recommendations from very well-placed people, right? Because I mean, we are human beings at the end of the day. And if someone is reviewing your application and see the recommendation from Barack Obama, I mean, that is certainly going to carry you a long way, right? But ultimately, if they see a recommendation from Barack Obama and Barack Obama is your uncle, his recommendation is useless, right? If they see a recommendation from Barack Obama and Barack Obama is your father, it's useless. If you see a recommendation from Barack Obama and you've only interacted with Barack Obama once in your life, it's useless. So what they want to see is a recommendation from someone irrespective of the person's standing in society. Someone who has worked with you either as a teacher or as an employer, right? Or someone who is placed in a position from which they can observe your qualities, right? Over a period of time that enables them to make sensible conclusions, right? So if you've only met Barack Obama once in your life at a conference and you became friends and he said, send me an email, and you sent him an email afterwards, and that was the last time you saw him, and you were applying to Harvard and you sent him an email again and said, please, can you write me a letter of recommendation? He may say yes, he may say no, but if he says yes and he writes you a letter of recommendation, I can assure you that that letter is almost useless. Whoever reads your application would be keen on knowing how you got to know Obama, right? But as far as the value, the weight in relation to your application, it will be next to zero, right? So that teacher of yours at your university, who you were not really friends with, but who taught you for an entire year, and who was in the faculty through the 5 or 4 or 3 years you were in that faculty, and who probably has never been out of India, that teacher's recommendation would be higher, way higher than a recommendation from Obama, right? So when you're thinking of who to choose as your recommenders, make sure you choose people who have observed you from close quarters and who are in a position to make a reasoned conclusion on your person, on your academic abilities, on your leadership abilities, on you as a human being, really, right? Because I think Harvard is interested in you as a human being, not necessarily your grades and all of that. So you as a human being, and when you find such people, right, Harvard has given you a sense of where to look. Harvard says, look at your place of employment, because at your place of employment, your boss would see you daily, or whomever you're asking to write your letter would see you daily, would have opportunities to observe you, right, and make reasoned conclusions. And that's why they say we would want to see one from your employer, ideally, right, because it will be recent and it will be relevant, right? They would say we want to see one from a professor at law school, at your school, because your academic abilities are also important. But what people fail to understand is that going to a university trains you in many ways than one. Most people think it's just about academic training, but it's much more than that. You become a person in school, right? And so your professors see that. It's not formally assessed, it is socially assessed, right? And they can make a comment or two on that. So Harvard says we would also want to see something from your professors, right? And we also want to see someone from anybody really who just is in a position to make an informed opinion of you as a person, right? Your abilities as a person. But they must not be family members. They must be people who have spent time with you. So when you're thinking of recommenders, think of people who have, I mean, you could be in an environment, like for instance, using myself as an example, and I hope my colleagues at Templars don't see this. When I was applying and I needed to get recommendations, I was lucky to get a recommendation from the dean of my law school, the deputy director general at the time, who was head of campus of my law school. I was able to get a recommendation from the dean of the university, faculty of law at the university I attended. And I was lucky to get another recommendation from the head of the law school. So I had pretty highly placed people, right? Which is good. As best as possible, when you make your list of potential recommenders, pick the highly placed people. Those with nice fancy titles, they help, right? They help. So for instance, if Pranjal and I, for instance, attended the University of Cambridge, and we're in the MCL class and we're applying to Harvard, and we're taking recommendations, and I have recommendations from assuming the dean of the faculty taught us, and have a recommendation from the dean, but Pranjal has a recommendation from a junior lecturer. When they look at both, they say one person had a better relationship with the dean, right? That counts for
Certainly,
something,
yes. Of
right?
course, of course.
Yeah. So when you have your list, you rank them by title, right? It helps because it's also psychological. It helps. They are all human beings. Remember that your
Yes, yes.
application was read by human beings, not computers. So play with their minds also. I had people with fancy titles. I did. When it came to my work, I had to pick someone. Now the person with the fancy title, my big boss, right? They're all partners, quite all right, but his was partner and head of the finance practice. I like that line, the head of the finance practice, because I was applying to Harvard for an LLM in finance, right? And I thought about it and I said, who is in a better position to say better things about me? Like, I didn't want, even though I wanted it to be as objective as possible, yeah, but please say nice things about me. Okay? So, and you know, when it gets to the, when you're dealing with the higher ups, right? Yes, they would say good things about you, but the level of enthusiasm with which they say may not be the same. So I wanted someone whose joy and whose enthusiasm could be seen in the paper. I didn't want someone to say, "Oh yeah, Kenneth's a nice guy. He's smart. He works hard." I didn't want that. I wanted to say something along the lines of, "Oh my God, I'm pleased to recommend Kenneth. He's the best thing that has happened to law. You can't do without him." That's what I wanted, right? So
makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah. So when I did my list of potential recommenders in the office, I said, you have a nice title, but your level of enthusiasm may not necessarily be seen in the recommendation. So out. And then I chose someone who I felt would deliver the kind of enthusiasm I wanted. And he did. So titles matter, but they don't matter as much as that relationship and that opportunity to know you and see you and observe your qualities and make informed, reasonable conclusions from them. And when you've identified those people, that should be your first criteria. When you've identified people who fit into that box, then you rank them according to their titles. And then when you've done the ranking according to their titles, you now rank them according to their levels of enthusiasm. And when you do that, you would have your potential recommenders. Now, Harvard usually wants 3, right? I think 1 from your university, 1 from law school, and 1 from your employer. There's space for a 4th and a 5th, but I also know that they tell you that anything beyond 3 is useless. So keep it at 3, 4 maximum. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely. That was really helpful. Thank you so much, Kenneth.